Started my career in 1989, September, and then the Federal Civil Service, we come in usually by deciding which sector you want to operate, and at that time it was Federal Ministry of Power, Mines and Steel.
Before I came here to the power sector, I used to work with the Infrastructure Bank. And I worked there for over 6 years.
I won't say I stumbled into the power sector. I actually was working as a quality control engineer with the Federal Capital Development Authority after my National Youth Service.
My journey, in this industry has been amazing. It's been a very interesting 16 years. I started working with NEC in 2007, but before I got into NEC, I was working with Federal Ministry of Internal Affairs, Department of National Civic Registration.
I started my journey in the power sector as a Chief Commercial Officer in Ikeja Electric.
Well, my journey into the power sector has been quite interesting and fulfilling, if I may put it that way. It started at Banwani Godalo, a foremost leading commercial and corporate law firm in Lagos here. After that, I went to Harvard Law School for my master's, and whilst I was there, I worked with the Harvard Electricity Policy Group, and that was my first exposure and stint.
When I worked in we were the pioneer staff, so everything we did was new. It was fresh. Everything you see today was a brainchild of that nucleus, the first set of people that were there. I came in 10 years ago. I came in as a young lady. I was the youngest general manager when I joined. 10 years after, I'm still the youngest. So you can imagine the sorts of people I joined.
A lot has happened. With my experience in the past in the Presidential Task Force on Power, I saw that a lot needed to be done, and there was great improvement. The privatization brought in a lot of change, and the tempo of generation, transmission, and distribution, I guess there was great improvement.
At the time that I joined the power sector, then we were trying to increase the power generation, because at that time, power generation was less than 5,000 megawatt, and at the time that I came, we were making concerted efforts to get it to 6,000 megawatt and keep pushing it going forward. But unfortunately, at that time, the power sector was still wholly owned by federal government from the generation, transmission and distribution.
The sector has really evolved, and I'll tell you a funny story. I joined in February 2015, and in April 2015, there was an action that was taken by the Commission, the removal of collection losses from the tariff, that resulted in all the 11 discos declaring force majeure. So you can imagine my concern, that, wow, did I make the right decision, coming to a distribution company?
Because it's an engineering thing, there are very little women there. So I've always been the only female at the executive level. And, being young, being female, I'd had to, sort of stand firm. It's very difficult, in the society we are, to sort of stamp your foot and make, any mark.
Working with Connexa, I think two things that we have been key in moving forward is franchising being one. We started out pioneering a franchising model. Franchising guidelines were developed by NERC, and I think we played a role in the development of that guideline. And the second would be trading. So having worked for a while on a franchising model, there was some volatility in the distribution sector, particularly with Kaduna Electric, so we had to pivot and redesign our model. And the model we came up with, the new design, involved trading. So one of the first 4 players, I believe, that have been granted a trading license by the Commission.
No, I didn't start my career in the power sector. And so working in the Presidential Task Force on Power, I after being in charge of the institutional continuity, which was the head of the secretariat, I was later made technical advisor to the NIPP project, which was being handled by the Niger Delta Power Holding Company. And being able to help them resolve some issues that were delaying the project, that we could move forward. And then at a point you realize that a turbine is now being connected to the grid and commissioned. I mean, you get excited because now you've been able to add some megawatts to the grid. So for me, those were very memorable times, being part of the commissioning of the Niger Delta Power Holding project. I was part of the commissioning in Saple. I was part of commissioning in Calabar.
One of the things you realize working in the power sector is that it's not theory. Every decision you take impacts on the lives of people, one way or the other. So that's one of the things that you realize when you work in a multidisciplinary sector like this. You learn how to work with people, you learn how to understand, key subjects outside your own core area. My own core area is law, but I've learned, a little about a lot, of different areas. And in terms of specific things, I was company secretary when my company was awarded, the best distribution company in terms of corporate governance. I was also in the director legal services role when we set up, the first intergovernmental agency task force on electricity-related offences, and we saw convictions come out of that.
In 2012, I was transferred to tariff and rates division as senior manager tariff and rates. And I remember when I was transferred there, I was given just a couple of weeks to draft the MITO 2 tariff order, and which I delivered. I drafted the generation, transmission, distribution orders, and from there onwards, I was involved in the drafting of all the Commission's tariff orders from 2012 to 2020 when I left, and as Assistant General Manager and Head Tariff and Rates.
Ikeja Electric was awarded the most gender-diverse utility company during the Nigerian Power Sector Award that was held last year in Abuja. Today, there are more women in our management team than ever before, including business unit managers.
One of the things that I started working on early in the power sector was to diversify the energy mix of the country. At that time, we thought we could also exploit our coal deposits that is in Enugu, Benue, and Kogi axis. Of course, at the time when we were conceiving this, one of the things we had one of the aims was that even when we are going to develop the coal development in Nigeria, it will be done in such a way that it will not degrade the environment, because there are new initiatives where you could your power plant operation, the sulfur and other toxic emission from the operation will be captured and in such a way that it will not affect the environment.
In recent times, I would say that being able to distribute 20,000 solar home systems to very rural communities, when I say very rural, I mean very rural, for people who have not been able to imagine when they will ever get light, for me was a great achievement. Going to the villages in the night to see them. We actually went through most of those rural areas in the night to see the effect of the project on them and see the smiles on the faces of the women and children. I mean, for me, it was wow, this is great to be able to put smiles on the faces of people and give them what they never thought they would get. And it was also, it was a presidential initiative, and NDPAC helped in making this happen by subsidizing whatever they had to pay. And so it was easy for them to get connected to it. So 20,000, the project was supposed to be executed in 1 year, and we did it in less than 7 months. So for me, that was a great achievement and a great milestone for me. I loved the moment being in the midst of those villagers and seeing the smiles on their faces?
We have developed several regulations over the years, just in an effort to make sure that the industry moves forward. And some of those regulations, like, for example, the tariff orders that we have developed, I think they've been quite impactful on the industry, even though, over the last couple, there were some years, whereby the Commission did not conduct tariff reviews, but I think over the years, I've seen a lot of changes, as I mentioned, and going from seeing the market evolve, develop from private hands, from government-owned entities, to then private owners taking over the ownership and management of these companies. We've seen Manitoba Hydro, manage TCN, and then from there, they were there as management contractors for a period of 3 years, and then after that they left. So I think I've seen the industry evolve, really.
I started this privatization journey with EcoDisco in 2013, and I was actually part of the entire handover ceremony, which was a very, very proud moment for me. In addition, I've been involved actively in developing a lot of structures, developing a lot of templates which are used in the industry today, working with NERC. So I would say a lot of my output has been from driving and leading a lot of transactions across all the disciplines.
When I took over, I noticed that some of the regulations, were outdated. And Section 80 of the Act mandates us as a commission to develop several customer protection regulations. And some of those regulations were developed as far back as 2007. So what I did was I immediately started the review of 5 customer protection regulations and, developed a consultation paper, published it on the website, went around the country for public consultation. And I'm proud to see that, those regulations now have been reviewed. We've merged those 5 regulations into one single regulation for ease of reference, and just 2 weeks ago it's been approved and is on the Commission's website.
2 major challenges. One, I think too much bureaucracy, particularly maybe in, I would say, transmission. Trying to get things done fast, trying to get them done efficiently, is oftentimes hindered by the amount of bureaucracy you have to go through. And considering that a lot of the times you're doing the same processes, you're signing the same agreements, negotiating the same agreement, it's the whole way that each player interconnects and interrelates with the sector is pretty uniform. So why I don't understand why, it continues to take so long to get things done.
The first major issue we face in the sector is the aging infrastructure within our network, and not just the Ikeja Electricity Network, but Nigeria, all the discos in Nigeria. This poses a major challenge in efficiently distributing power to our customers and anyone that is using our power. Our grid also lacks some form of reliability, which affects the overall performance of our operations.
There are many challenges, but I think I will 2 stand out, and that's number 1, and they are related. The first one I would say is the issue of tariff, electricity tariff. There is the need, for there to be a cost-reflective tariff. If the idea is to promote economic development and to attract investment into the sector, then it is important that the tariff is cost-reflective, which means it reflects the costs that it takes, the prudent costs, to bring electricity to the end user.
We're all in a market. It's about the money. Everybody's here to make money, And now really everybody's crying because of lack of payment. The megawatts we produce, because of gas constraints, they're low. Why do we have gas constraints? Because we're not paying for the gas. And the gas suppliers are also. So if you look at the whole value chain, it's all about money, So I think we need to reset. We started a reform. We need to go back from where it went wrong, set it straight, so that we can move forward.
If everybody could do what they're expected to do, the contract they have, the distribution companies, the transmission companies, generation companies, then you can talk about the sector being liquid, because right now people talk about liquidity, the sector is not liquid. But why is there no liquidity in the sector? It's because people are not honoring their contracts. If I sell 20 megawatts to you, when you are returning the money, return the money for 20 megawatts.
Looking at Nigeria and seeing that, looking back in history to see that, electricity generation started in this country as far back as 1896. That's 126 years down the line, and we are still talking about 13,000 megawatts of installed capacity and about 4,500 to 5,000 available generation. For a country of about 200 million people, it's for me, I would say it's simply unacceptable. We should be doing more than this at this point in time. And Nigerians are really complaining because the supply is simply not there.
There is an urgent need for significant investment in the green infrastructure. And I emphasize that because if we can tackle that problem, then we are guaranteed of ensuring that all our customers just have consistent, reliable power to ensure that we're able to properly maximize the power that is generated on the grid, and of course improve the quality of service that we provide to our customers today.
As a country, we need to be holistic because you have players that are outside the power sector. For instance, you have fuel resource. Our fuel resource is domiciled in another ministry, Ministry of Petroleum, where we get gas, and the water resources which the hydropower plants are based on is domiciled with the Ministry of Water Resources. So the main problem is to try and integrate all sectors so that we have one goal, the same focus. That's the main problem. And then the players in the sector, everybody is looking out for itself, but that's why NEC has a difficult task of trying to get everybody to be on the same page. That's the main problem now.
I believe with the program on ground right now and the support that are coming in, I think a lot can be done. Most generation companies are beginning to see what they should do and how they can also be able to earn some revenues from whatever it is in the sector for this energy transition.
Energy transition means different things to different people. And depending on where you are, your energy transition can be moving from coal to gas, can be eliminating all the generating sets that are polluting the atmosphere.
Looking at all countries around the world, all countries are moving towards greener, technology. Energy transition is something that we talk about on a daily basis. For us, I think in Nigeria, it's something that we should also look forward to.
In terms of energy transition and opportunities, the opportunities are enormous. I believe that it's unbelievable if we could tap into it. For example, in terms of generation, I think we should look at renewables. I think that's the way the world is going to cut down on our carbon footprints in the world. There's a lot of natural resources we could also use. So in terms of investor opportunity, I believe that investing in generation, in renewables, would really go a long way towards adding value to the sector.
The distribution sector is at the end of the value chain. So there needs to be discussions even right up the value chain so that it's something that is from one end to the other. One of the challenges I think with the power sector is addressing issues at just one aspect of the chain. It is important that because it's a value chain, then you need to start at the top and make sure that the changes that are being promoted, actually affect, one end from end to end, as they say.
So at UKNIAF, we provide advisory support, technical assistance to institutions and agencies responsible for planning and delivering infrastructure. But not just any type of planning and not any type of delivery. We're looking at infrastructure that's inclusive, as many people as possible have access to it, and we're also looking at infrastructure that's climate smart. And the Women on the Grid Hub helps us to further both those objectives.
As I said, I came in, I didn't have a mentor. I came in alone. It would have been nice if I had someone to tell me, Fatima, you know, deal with it this way or the other way. It's nice for people, younger people come in to see that, yes, you can survive. It'd be nice if Women on the Grid will create sort of a mentorship program for younger girls getting into, you know, the sector, engineering, legal, whatever it is.
There's a lot of talk about diversity, inclusion. You know, there's so much talk, but I don't think it's just about the talk. The real important thing is that, do women really add value? And if they do add value, should there be platforms, you know, that create opportunities for them, you know, to ascend, you know, to leadership in different sectors, taking into consideration their unique challenges? Absolutely.
And what we've done is to do a stock take of the women who occupy high-level policy spaces in those particular nodes within the electricity supply value chain. And we've identified them in line with the commitments that were reached at COP27 in Egypt to mobilize more women in high policy spaces as champions of climate change.
I'm pleased that this is coming up. I hope we don't just look at the executives in this value chain. Let's also go down and see what women are doing. We have more of women in the financials, legal, and the social environment in the sector. We have more of them than we have women in technical. And it's not that we don't, even the few we have in technical, there's need for us to build capacity. There's need for us to engage them. There's need for us to find ways where they can be repositioned to do what they know best to do.
When those who are older begin to tell their success stories, and the younger ones they will be encouraged to know that some ladies were able to contribute. And so once you have a success story, then you are able to replicate it, and then they are encouraged to be able to participate.
Inclusion is, you know, a key part of the work that we do. Gender equity is a key part of the work we do. We would like to see, you know, more women sitting at the table when we hold these policy conversations with our partners in the government spaces, because we know that they bring a lot to the table. Many times they work behind the scenes, even though they do occupy high-level positions. So it speaks to that, one of our core, part of the core values and the goals we have as a program, to be an inclusive program that promotes inclusive infrastructure delivery.